Say hello to the most powerful and quickest accelerating Audi ever made, the 2025 RS e-tron GT. Now, this model arrived a few years ago, very closely related to the Porsche Taycan, which is generally agreed to be one of the fastest and best driving EVs out there. Now, the RS e-tron GT has gotten a big upgrade for this 2025 model year. We get more power, we get a new battery, we get quicker charging, all of the things that you want to see from an electric vehicle. So now in this first drive review, we have to ask ourselves one big question. Is the Audi better than the Porsche Taycan, and is it better than the original one that launched just a few years ago? Let's check it out to find out the answer. So we're going to start with a quick walk around of the RS e-tron GT. I'm not going to spend too much time here because honestly, looking at this car and looking at the previous generation car, not a huge difference if I'm being honest. I'm glad that Audi did away with the black center grille. That's something that they did pre-facelift, but I really like the body color kind of grille area there, even though you don't really need to have it kind of carved out like this. Just makes it look a little bit more like one of their gasoline engine cars. This front fascia is a little bit different, revised on the RS model. From the 2024 car. We also have a carbon package here that is pretty expensive, and that is going to add this nice carbon fiber. You can see it is kind of a forged carbon fiber rather than a woven, and that is also going to get you, as part of that package, this 21-inch wheel. Now, you can get this in a lighter finish, but this is the darker finish as part of that carbon ceramic package. We also have a Dynamic Plus package, which is going to get us this red Audi carbon ceramic brake. You can also get a black brake caliper if you don't want the red, or maybe the color you're going for doesn't work as well with the red. This new color is called Progressive Red. It's available on other Audis as well. It replaces Tango Red in their lineup. I think it looks absolutely stunning on this car. You can see that we do have more carbon fiber. We've got the forged carbon right here. And then we also have a carbon fiber roof, which is something that you cannot get on a Porsche Taycan. This has a matte finish because we have the carbon fiber package. We can also get this in a gloss carbon fiber if you so choose, and there is a glass roof, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we do have charge ports on both sides of the vehicle. That is kind of interesting. Audi has been putting the model designation here on the B pillar on all of its vehicles, and we do have this very sexy coupe-like profile. Just looks so good. I'm glad that they didn't really change that. I should also tell you, we do have more of that forged carbon down here on the lower door cards. Just a very interesting use of forged carbon with this package, although, as we'll talk about a little bit later, it is quite expensive. We do have a new rear fascia as well. The taillights are the same. They do some really cool lighting animations at night. Down here is where you're going to start to see the difference. It's a little bit of a different diffuser area here. We have that kind of brake light, vertical light down here that they're doing on a lot of their RS performance cars. Moving on to the inside, we see a little bit more changes, I would say, than we did on the interior of the car. Something to note, when we lift up the car by opening the doors, so we have the adaptive hydraulic suspension here. It's the same one that you get on the Porsche Panamera, and it works extremely fast. You can see that the car is lifted up, and it really lifts up quickly when you open these doors. I'll try and show you here on the wheel. Boom, there you go. It's going to go ahead and lift up, making it a little bit easier to get in and out of this vehicle. Because the one complaint that I had with this car, and it remains true even on this facelift model, is that this B-pillar is kind of awkward in that the seat is kind of behind it. Same issue that you get in the Porsche Taycan, so you sometimes tend to bang into this when you're getting in and out of the vehicle, especially if you are a tall driver. Here on the RS model, we have these really nice seats with this really cool pattern that is typical of Audis. These are heated and ventilated with massage function, really good massage function as well. Standard on the RS e-tron GT. We've got our stop-start button down here. We do actually have a stop-start button, even though this is an electric car and there is no engine. Because we have a carbon fiber package, we've got this forged carbon here on the dash. It is a woven carbon, which is also very nice as well if you don't get that package, but I do like how this looks. Gives it kind of a camo look. Both of the carbon fiber packages are pretty interesting. The touchscreen remains the same size. I kind of wish they would have gone for a bigger one here. It does look a little bit small in such an expensive vehicle like this, but it works fine. I like Audi's Touch MMI system. Wireless Apple CarPlay is here, as is wireless Android Auto, so I don't really have any complaints about it other than it's a little bit small. The one thing that I do like is that this car still has plenty of buttons. We've got our physical climate controls for fan speed and temperature, heated and ventilated seat control buttons as well. Very nice, very clicky as well. If you don't like the fact that the Porsche Taycan is basically exclusively touchscreens, this might be the right vehicle for you because it does still have plenty of buttons and knobs. We do get a new steering wheel here. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is all swipe and touch controls now, although they do have clickiness to them as well. You can kind of change how these gauges look if you want kind of like a bigger, fuller map. Very similar to what we find in other Audi models. There's your map. You can make it big. You can make it small. And we do have this new steering wheel as well. As I mentioned with the suede here, we've got the 12 o'clock marker here in gray. We've got some new buttons. This boost button we'll talk about when we get it out on the road, and we have an RS button that's going to pull up your RS drive modes, RS1, RS2, RS Performance. You can also use the drive select button here. So we have efficient mode, we have comfort mode. You can change that active suspension. You can turn off the elevated entry. We also have active cornering compensation. We'll talk about that on the road. It kind of moves the car around and keeps it balanced on the corners. And it does the same thing during acceleration and braking. So you have dynamic mode, which is going to use all of that stuff. You can also independently change the suspension height here. And then over on the other side, the aforementioned RS1 and RS2 buttons, where you can kind of configure what you want. So you can make RS1 kind of sporty, but with your comfortable suspension. RS2 can be a little bit more crazy. And then RS Performance is going to be your most extreme. I mentioned that we do have the carbon fiber roof on this car, but new for 2025, you can now get the Audi RS e-tron GT with this very, very cool glass panoramic roof that has different segments to it. So you can actually make part of it become clear or opaque. So the opaque blocks out more of the sun, the clear lets more of the light out in, which is really cool. Basically, it's the same one that you're able to get in the Porsche Taycan, and I do think it is a really cool option if you are not trying to save the most weight, which this is not the lightest car on the planet anyway. So I say get the glass roof because it is really cool and it's a really nice party piece. Now we're going to quickly check out the rear seat, where this is one area where the RS e-tron GT is not the best in terms of spaciousness. Once again, we have this kind of awkward pillar entrance, and then we do have this kind of big area right here that makes it a little bit tough to access the rear seat. Even though the ride height gets lifted, the roofline is pretty low back here. I do have a decent amount of legroom. I've got my own heated seats and air vents back here, but this is just not as spacious as something like an Audi A6 or an Audi RS7. Something like that just has more space than the RS e-tron GT. And it's a similar story here in the trunk, where I really wish that Audi would have made this car a wagon, or at least offered a wagon variant, sort of how the Porsche Taycan has the Cross Turismo and the Sport Turismo, because you only get about 9.2 cubic feet of space back here. You can fold down the rear seats if you want to, but it's still not very big. It's not very deep. We do have this little nice cargo net here and this cargo hook hanging up here, but as you can see, it is quite shallow, so it doesn't exactly have SUV practicality, even though it does have this nice power trunk here. And you may not even know it's here because they hide it here on the front door, but you do actually get a frunk, albeit a rather small one, here in the front. So it does have a little bit more storage in here. You can see your charging cable fits just fine. You could definitely fit your carry-on backpack sort of thing to save storage in the back. So even with this, the RS e-tron GT is not winning any practicality challenges against an Audi RS6, but it is decent, for two people, maybe three, to take a road trip with. Now, I did mention the two charge ports, which is rather interesting. So over here on the driver's side, you only have your level 2 charger. If you want to DC charge, it's actually going to be on this side. Now you might be wondering, why do I need 2 charge ports? Well, it's kind of nice if, maybe your garage is oriented in a certain way that you really want it over there. So it is nice that Audi lets you charge on both sides, but this is going to be the more important side because this is going to be where your DC charging is. Now, as you can see, still a CCS connector. Audi has not switched over to the NACS connector that Tesla uses. That's the bad news. The good news is that we now have a bigger battery than before, 105 kilowatt hours. And it's interesting that even though this battery is bigger, it was only 93.4 kilowatt hours before, they actually managed to make it 25 pounds lighter. It has a different chemistry in it, and that is going to really help with the range. The previous e-tron GT only went 249 miles, but now you'll get 300 miles on a charge in the S e-tron GT. If you want the RS e-tron GT that we are driving here, that also gets a really nice range improvement. It used to only do 232 miles, will now do 278 miles, thanks to that new cell chemistry, adapted thermal management, and interconnection of the 4 coolant circuits that help cool the battery and help manage all of that heat. So not only do we have more range, but we also have quicker charging. It was already one of the quickest charging EVs on the market. You could do 270 kilowatts in one of these, but now you can actually do 320 kilowatts. That's going to bring the, I believe they're quoting 0 to 80% charging in just 18 minutes. It was 21 and a half minutes before, which was really darn quick, but now it's doing that in just 18 minutes. This thing is right up there with some of the quickest charging EVs on the market, and now it finally has the range to be road trip ready. All right, so let's get behind the wheel of the new Audi RS e-tron GT, and the first thing that I've got to start off with is going to be a 0 to 60. So we're going to go ahead and put it into its RS performance mode. We're going to try and get the max 912 horsepower out of this car with a launch control. Let's do it. Foot on the gas, foot on the brake, and then launch program activated, and I can just let off. Oh my God. Oh. Just wait until I read you the numbers here. Audi claims that this car will do 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds. Well, they're a bunch of liars, because my race box says we just did it in 2.17 seconds. 2.17 seconds. It destroyed my face and my spine in the process. But that is what 2 electric motors, now with a new battery, we have a new rear motor in this car compared to the one that we had in the previous car where it only made 637 horsepower. That is how we get that incredible level of acceleration. 1,100 amps in launch control mode. We've got a 2-speed transmission. Both this car and its sister, the Porsche Taycan, both have a 2-speed transmission that just help you launch like an absolute rocket ship. That was one of the craziest launches I've ever done. Now that is the RS e-tron GT, 912 horsepower, but there is still a base model. The regular e-tron GT has been replaced by a new S e-tron GT. That car previously had 523 horsepower, the regular e-tron GT. The S model now has 670 horsepower. That's right, the S is actually more powerful than the old RS model, and that thing is pretty darn quick too. 3.3 seconds to 60 compared to 3.9. That's only 0.2 of a second slower than the old RS car. That's wild how much faster they made this 2025 car. Now in launch control mode, you're going to get the full 912 horsepower. You're not really getting that all the time, but let me just tell you, it still feels incredible. It slaps your head to the seat when I push the throttle like this. If you're not ready for it, it absolutely destroys any sense of speed that you have. And you can get a quick boost of acceleration, 94 extra horsepower to be exact, for 10 seconds. If I click the boost button on the steering wheel, it's hard to put it into words, but you're already back against the seat. but it almost feels like it's trying to push your bones closer to your skin into the seat. That's the only way I think I can really describe the acceleration of this car. Oh, it's absolutely grotesque if you're not ready for it. Now, I think the only thing more impressive than how this car accelerates is how it stops. Oh, we've got carbon ceramic brakes on this car, and now they've increased the level of regen that you can get to 400 kilowatts. So basically you're recouping more energy into the battery before you even actually get to use the carbon ceramic brake. Now, the base brake is still really good. It's a carbide brake, but the carbon ceramic, if you want the maximum performance, you're gonna want the carbon ceramic brake. It just throws your face the other direction after you've already destroyed the back of your head with the new electric motors. It's absolutely crazy to think that this is a big, heavy, comfortable luxury EV that can do that sort of acceleration and that sort of braking. And now we get to the curvy part of this road where we can talk about the new suspension. So you get air suspension standard on this car on the S model. It is now a 2-chamber, 2-valve suspension. It used to be a 3-chamber, 1-valve. Now, somebody much smarter than me can explain why 2 chambers and 2 valves is better than 3-chamber and 1-valve, but we don't really have that suspension anyway, because optionally on this RS e-tron GT, we have a new active suspension. This is a hydraulic system. It's part of an $11,000 Dynamic Plus package, and $11,000 sounds like a ton of money, but when you factor in that you get this suspension and those carbon ceramic brakes and some other stuff, I think it's probably worth the money, if I'm being honest. Now, this suspension is incredible. We already saw that when you open the doors, it's going to lift the whole car, but it can do way more than that. It can basically read the road ahead, and I'm about to toss this car at probably way too high of a speed into this corner, and the car just doesn't move. It just stays flat and level as if I'm driving a race car. It's incredible. But then when the road gets rough, that very same suspension that is keeping me absolutely planted here makes the ride sublime. This thing is Bentley level comfortable, but then it has Porsche level ride control. You really do get the best of both worlds all the time. We also have 4-wheel steering, which is standard on the RS car, optional on the S, making it just turn so tightly, which, speaking of which, we have a more direct steering ratio than last year's model. It wasn't so much a complaint as an observation that I noted that the Porsche Taycan had sharper steering than this car. And it was maybe the one reason why I said you should get a Porsche Taycan over an Audi RS e-tron GT. I preferred the interior of this car, maybe the looks of the Taycan, although they're both really good looking, the price of this, but the steering of the Taycan was just unbeatable. Now that they've changed the ratio here, I feel like the comparison is much closer. That car was already really nice with steering. I thought, besides the R8, it had the best steering that I had ever experienced in an Audi, and now they've actually made it even better and even sharper. So good on Audi for making an already great driving car even better. And I just can't get over the passing power. You get a little bit of engine noise pumped in, but it's not too crazy. It's nothing like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. And in fact, I hope Audi and I hope Porsche look to Hyundai, because other than what they've already done to this car with the crazy power, the crazy brakes, the crazy suspension, they made the charging speed faster, they made the range better, they did all of the things you would want to do. What's left to improve on this car? Add a little bit of whimsy. That's, I think, the only thing that you could say, because what it doesn't do that an RS6 or an RS7 does, besides have a lot more cargo space, is have that V8 snarl. Imagine a world where you could tell this car, you could have a button on here that says, I want it to sound like the V8 twin-turbo RS6, or I want it to sound like a V10 R8. And then, when you hit it with 912 horsepower, you get a whoop, 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 like you would in an R8. Does that not sound like the greatest thing ever, like the most fun experience? That's what I want from an RS car. I want silly, I want whimsy, and I want the speed. But other than that, I think Audi did an amazing job with this car. It's still a GT car, as the RS e-tron GT name suggests. It's faster than ever. This thing is ludicrously fast, and it handles extremely well. I think the fit and finish in here is worlds better than Tesla. I think it's on par with something like a Lucid Air. I think this is maybe better built than a Lucid Air. You can trust this more than a company like Lucid. It's absolutely phenomenal. All right, so that was the 2025 Audi RS e-tron GT. If you're looking for something a little slower and more civilized, you just want the 300-mile range, the S e-tron GT, which is new for 2025, replacing the base e-tron GT, now starts at $125,500 for the Premium Plus trim. You can spend a little bit extra to get the nicer Prestige trim, which is $135,800. That is a pretty sizable increase over the outgoing e-tron GT, which I believe was about $106,000. But keep in mind, the S e-tron GT now produces more power than last year's RS e-tron GT, and it's only a tad slower than the outgoing RS e-tron GT. As for this one, it now costs $167,000 even for the RS e-tron GT Performance, which is the new name of the RS e-tron. Audi tends to do this where they add a new performance model to kind of replace the regular RS model. And as we've seen, you get way more power. You're getting a lot closer to the Tesla Model S Plaids of the world, the Lucid Sapphires of the world. But actually, this is a lot cheaper than the Lucid for very, very similar performance, even though it has about 1,000 less horsepower, or maybe not 1,000. It's 1,234 in the Lucid, 912 in this, so you are pretty close. The charging is really good. I would say this stands out, especially in a bold color like progressive red. And unlike a Lucid or a Tesla, you have the reliability of knowing that you have a big, well-known manufacturer from Audi with like a century worth of engineering know-how. I already loved this car before. In fact, I thought it was a great way to basically get a Porsche Taycan without paying Porsche Taycan prices. Speaking of which, the Taycan Turbo GT is like $230,000. That's before options. Even if you want like the regular turbo, you're probably looking at about 200 grand or more with options, making this an absolute bargain right now. But let me know in the comment sections, would you buy a Tesla or a Lucid over this RS e-tron GT, or would you just simply stick with the Porsche Taycan? I think Audi has done more than ever to kind of put themselves at the forefront of what's possible in an EV right now, and at a price that is, albeit a heck of a lot of money, but is actually less than the competition. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos, and I'll see you next time.